So, Chantel, you've obviously done so much with your career that I'm surprised at this point you haven't won a Forbes 30 under 30. It's probably, can still come. But people probably only see like one side of you. So I want to cover everything you've been involved in, the investing and, of course, the music. So to get a better sense of your 20s, though, I do want to take it back before. I understand you moved around a lot when you were growing up. So like San Diego, North Carolina, Virginia, Boston, all these places. First question for you. What did you learn during those days of having to make new friends, meet new people, and never getting too comfortable?
Well, I definitely learned how to be adaptable and be able to adjust to, meeting new people quickly, being able to make new friends, and just dealing with totally different types of structured environments, whether it's like school. I moved around and was in places that are completely different. The people there, the way that they do things. And so I think that it made me very well rounded. It made me be able to relate to a lot of different types of people because I experienced a lot of different types of people and cultures growing up, especially with my dad being in the military. You
Mhm.
know, you're located close to military bases, which brings in all different people from different walks of life. So I experienced and saw a lot just when it came to diversity and the way people do things, which I noticed, carrying over into my adulthood and traveling a lot for work and just realizing that the most valuable knowledge that I've acquired has been mostly through seeing how other people that live their day to day, how they live their day to day lives all
Totally.
over the world, which is totally different. And being able to be immersed in those environments and seeing, whether it's the way the food they eat and like how the food is just different, or like the healthcare system is different and how they treat certain things is different. Just when it comes to even personal space or how people act in public and what's considered to be socially acceptable versus not, and how it's so much different as you travel. And gathering all that information, I feel like it definitely helped me be able to kind of like make decisions based on, products, companies having ideas, knowing, what different types of people might like and things like that.
Totally. Yeah, I bet it was super annoying moving around a lot when you were a kid, but I can see how authentic you are today and like, really appreciating those experiences. And yeah, when people think about diversity, a lot of people only think about it has to be this person looking like this versus that, but I think there's diversity of perspective and experience, and being able to hear different ideas growing up has clearly shaped a lot of the investments you make and different people that you work with today. So I think that's powerful. So you tweeted something super interesting a while back. I want to talk about this a little bit. It's that advice is what we ask for when we already know the answer. I'd love to talk about that a little bit and see if there was a time specifically in your 20s when this was most relevant.
Well, I've always been someone who really follows my intuition. I think women are just very, by evolutionary nature, we are
Mhm.
very observant beings, and that's because we have to have that motherly instinct. We have to be observant of potential dangers in our surroundings. So I think that following your intuition and your animal instincts, like animals don't need to be taught how to know how to hunt or how to do certain things in situations. They just know because it's their instinct and it's genetic knowledge that's passed down. So it's like, yes, we've evolved this way, which makes us make these decisions or act on the instinct that we might have. And a lot of the times people get so logical that they ignore those things, which you're taking in so much information that you don't realize that you're taking in, that you get those intuitive feelings because it's your subconscious telling you like, hey, oh, this actually, like, you don't even know that this is, like, you weren't even paying attention to this, but actually you have this feeling because your brain has taken in like, oh, maybe this was a potential threat, this was a potential whatever it could be. And I've noticed, just, I have 3 cats and I have 2 Bengal cats and a Savannah cat.
What are their
The
names?
Savannah, uh Tiny is a Savannah, and then Miso and Chai are, Miso's my snow Bengal and Chai is my Bengal. And it's very interesting to see the way that they interact, the dynamic, on top
Mhm.
of the fact that my Savannah cat is very wild. So he's 75% Savannah or serval, African serval cat, and then 25% domestic cat. So because he is so wild, the way that his instincts, the way he acts, it is so different than the other cats.
Mhm.
And I just observe him and I see that he's so smart and he knows how to do so many things just based on instinct. Like he literally knows how to get what he wants. Like he knows, it's really kind of crazy. And I observe him and I think like, wow, this is just your instinct. Like these are things that you just knew and you didn't have to learn them. So I think as humans, sometimes we forget that we are animals and we have animal instincts, and that, we have those for a reason, and we don't need to shun those things. We need to like incorporate that and be able
Mhm.
to, bring that into your decision making, because being in touch and being open to like ideas and things coming in, like that's how you strengthen that. Like for me, I'm like, it's a muscle. You strengthen your intuition by using it a lot, and you're able to come up with ideas and just see things can click easier. So I like to think it's like a tool that you have to sharpen.
Totally. Yeah. Super powerful quotes there. I just want to synthesize a few stuff that you've said there for the listeners that in a world where there's so much noise out there, sometimes you do have to put the blinders on and go with your gut. There's a lot of pressure, from it could be other peers, friends, what we see on social media, parents to maybe follow this trend or do this thing. But if are confident about something, a decision, you got to go with your gut, go with your intuition, because that's always been built in us. So I think that that's really powerful.
I also like, my favorite philosopher is Descartes, and I like to think that if I'm given enough time, I can think of a thought so deconstructed that I can come to my own conclusion fully, to the very smallest building block of what makes up that idea. Because a
Hmm.
lot of the times we just accept things as fact and we build on that. But
Hmm.
what I like to do is really deconstruct down to the bare minimum of each, like the most simplistic of each thing that I can prove, and really know that like this is true and this is true. And because this is true, now I can come to this other conclusion. And I've come to so many conclusions where, I'll just make up my own theories for things, and I just have my own outlook on stuff. And my favorite thing to do is thought experiments. So I'll come to these conclusions because I thought all the way from the beginning, like you just real, and then you really know, like, okay, this is true because I really went all the way down to the smallest thing that I could prove, and then I built from there.
So I'm so glad you made that point because that's a perfect pivot to talk about your investing career. You've made some crazy, amazing bets, Doge, Lolly. I know Alex Edelman, Aura Ring. People probably see that on the outside and they're all like, oh, she's just getting lucky. She's just, investing in really cool companies. But something that a lot of people don't know about you is before you put your money anywhere, you are breaking down each side of it really to the root. Whether it's going through Reddit and like seeing what people are talking about, or you actually being able to speak with people, building something and learning about the mechanics of a certain business, asset, whatever it might be. So we're gonna get to all the bets that you've made, but before we get there, I want to talk about what got you so fascinated with numbers, and when did you find out about this thing called investing?
Well, I was always a pretty gifted student in math specifically. When I was younger, I was a mathlete. I got offered a scholarship to go to North Carolina School of Math and Science. Like when I was older, I graduated when I was 16. And during the time in school, I was very encouraged by my math and science teachers because they saw the potential that I had in those areas. And like I was just generally interested in it. For me, I think I apply a mathematic point of view to pretty much everything in my life. When I think about anything, I'm like, a problem is an equation. I have all the variables. I can plug it in. I can solve this. Like, I love to problem solve. And that is, just that's something that I get dopamine from. Like, I generally enjoy it. So for me, I always have been into numbers because of that. When you're inherently good at something, it kind of just gives you more incentive because you do feel like, oh, I'm good at this. So you want to do it more. So yeah, I mean, I thought I would definitely do something in finance when I was younger just because it was such a strong suit of mine. And I was like, maybe I'll be like an investment banker or something like this. I was very good at accounting and I loved accounting and getting everything to balance out perfectly. Like at the end, you're like, okay. And if there's one thing off, you have to go back through and the whole thing. And I just really thought it was so satisfying at the end when you're like, okay, I've settled everything perfectly. I so I always thought like I would do something in
Mhm.
finance, but I did feel like I got a lot of attention based on like my personality and my looks from a young age. My mom was always discouraging of me being in a position like that because she just thought like nothing good comes from like being in this position, in a limelight position from a young age. Like, look at all the child stars. It's kind of like was always her philosophy on it. And
Yeah.
so for me, she was more worried about because from the time I was literally a baby, my mom's like people would come up to the stroller and like ask to take pictures of you, ask if you're a doll. Like people would literally come up to me. I would get stopped every single time I'd go out. So like she just thought that she wanted to shelter me from certain things happening. And at the time when I was younger, I didn't really realize because I didn't know about how the world was. And as I got older, this is something that I'm like, okay, I can, I have interest and I have talents in these areas, but like I have a lot of interests. So I'm not going to subject myself to only one area, because what I believe in my philosophy is that everything that you learn, it bleeds over and it is like a fractal of something else. So for
Yep.
me, there's things that I just know immediately because of something else that I've experienced, and it's the same formula, just different variables I'm plugging in. So I think, whenever I went to college, I like to do a wide variety of things. So I was interested in them all. And I feel like now I kind of have found a unique way to tie them all together. But like I went to school for communication arts and fine arts. And even though that wasn't, financially like based degree, I already felt like I already knew what I needed to know there, and I could move on to other things I needed to know, because I kind of just felt like I need to know about a lot of things because I just need to understand everything. I would go to school like I even when I graduated, I still go sit in on lectures. When I moved to LA, it was like a hobby of mine to go, especially philosophy, because that is my like one of my favorite subjects. But yeah, I generally love to learn things, love to teach people things, and I think when you like to teach things, it's because you actually like learning. So I like used to play teacher with my sister, and I would like teach her all these things, and honestly, it was like my favorite thing to do. So I feel like now I'm in a unique position where I'm like sometimes teaching people things. Sometimes I'm like giving my opinion about products or things I feel like I have the knowledge base on, and sometimes it does have to do with numbers. Sometimes it has to do with engineering with computers because I'm working on music, or like working on content and things like that. So it's like I feel like I do take a very hands-on approach across all avenues of what I do, and it's because I took interest in a lot of different things.
I love that point on having multiple interests. So, I've had a lot of cool people on my show, like Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Twitter, and I had Guy Kawasaki. I don't know if you know who that is. A few weeks ago, though, he's been with Canva and like one of the first people at Apple. And he, because I asked him, I was all like, "How do you find your passion in your 20s?" And he said, "No, like you got to reverse engineer it. You should have multiple interests in your 20s, things that you like to do, and then from those interests, find the things that you're obsessed over." And obsession, I know, usually has negative connotation, but obsession to me means, things that you love to do when you love to do them, but also when they're not fun. And, when you're not having a good time, you still want to do it because it still makes you feel good. And then from those obsessions can turn into passions. So I think so many people in their 20s are like, oh, I haven't found what I'm passionate about. It's because you haven't done enough. And
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. So I love that, like, people, again, like as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, like might have this one idea about you, but you don't let that kind of stop you from pursuing multiple interests. And maybe there are things that you haven't even cracked the surface with or like gotten interested in yet, but I can sense that you're not afraid to at least try new things, find new interests. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of that comes from my upbringing, because I would have to, just move my entire life and be doing something completely different. But I looked at it more as an adventure. And for me, I thought it was fun and exciting rather than like anxiety ridden or sad or depressing. Like I enjoyed it. And I think it's just about perspective. And I think that like that's one thing that I've always been very good at, is being able to control my perspective of the way that I see things,
Hmm.
and just having self-control in general. But that's like my dad was very military, and so like he
Same,
was very
actually.
like this way, this way, this way. So because of that, I do feel like I'm very in control of like my thoughts and my mood and the way. If I don't like something, I just fix it. I just change it. I literally take the time and effort. I get creative with the way that I can problem solve it out, and that's what I do.
So now I want to dive into your career angel investing because, with just the amazing, credible brand and track record you've built, you have access to millions of people through, your social networks. I imagine that you're getting an influx of deal flow. So like a lot of people maybe sending you deals, invest in my company, invest in this, you'd love to use it. So let's kind of get the question on the table. How do you separate the good ones from the bad ones when it comes to angel investing?
Well, I think part of I mean, there's a lot of different factors that I take into account. I liked when I meet the founders and the team, and like I know a lot of people. I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people throughout my life. I mean, I meet every time I'm doing shows, I'm traveling, I'm meeting like dozens of people per night. I'm going, I'm always doing things. So I've had to really hone in on like my intuition, and like and I'm very good at getting vibes from people, seeing like the way their thought process works. Like, do I think that the founder and the team is either have a similar thought process to me, or are they like different? Do I think that their way of doing things is going to be something I want to be a part of and successful in the future?
Mhm.
So, that's one thing. The product's one thing. I've been reviewing and testing products, giving my opinion on products and advertising for products for a decade. So when it comes to when I try a product, I that's like when something in my wheelhouse, knowing if it's good, knowing if it's not, like knowing
Totally.
whether I would use it. People I know would use it. When I studied communication in school, you learn about marketing, advertising, like the ethics behind it, the way things look,
Mhm.
just in media in general. So that's something else I take into account. And, ways that I can contribute and help, whether that's through my network, through ideas, through connections, finding talent for that, helping with trends, the online things. Um, yeah, I'm like kind of like an idea machine. I love like that's my favorite thing. It's just coming up with ideas, like implement ideas, giving ideas to people. I can't do them all myself. Like I love like making up things, inventing things. Like I just find that the most entertaining thing for me
Totally.
personally.
Yeah. So something else I want to talk to you about, because I'm pretty plugged into the VC space, but also I'm very interested in media, being a podcaster myself. So I've been really following this correlation between media and capital allocation. And you are a DJ influencer, you're many things, but you're also an investor. I want to talk about this trend of like other content creators, DJs, influencers creating funds, because this is something that like I've seen a lot. And obviously, you're one of the in the forefront, really like leading this as well with Vision Ventures. So before we dive into Vision, I want to talk about like this trend. And is this something that like you're also seeing? Like, are a lot of people that have amassed these crazy followings, getting a lot of deal flow? Are you also seeing them make funds?
Well, I notice, there's a lot of different creators, musicians that have funds, and when you are interested in certain areas, especially like when you're traveling a lot and you're seeing a lot of things, you see how you can make a difference in certain areas by investing, but you also are just always networking because especially being a DJ, honestly, you're always on tour. You It's not like you go on tour and then you don't. I mean, you're pretty much always traveling. You're pretty much always going around having your kind of like your ear to the ground and
Mhm.
knowing what's going on and kind of like being in the scene and kind of I think it's pretty value like a pretty good position to be in when it comes to investing. I
Yeah.
think content creators are people that are exposed to a lot of different types of products all the time. So I think that when you're an influencer, people are looking at you to tell them, what products are best, what things are best, so they don't have to do it for themselves. Because like even when it comes down to makeup products, skincare products, all these things, it takes a long time and like a lot of experience to know, like, okay, this product does this, like this is correlated with this. I think this is, I can tell this is good quality. If you've only tried one eyeshadow, how do you know if it's good? If I've tried 1 million eyeshadows, I'm pretty sure I can tell you exactly how good or bad this one is on the spectrum. So it's like when it comes down to whatever it is, um, you know, for me, and there's a wide variety of interests, but I mostly am looking at things that I really feel like I have knowledge base on and things that I feel like I contribute to. So I mean, I definitely think it makes sense why a lot of other DJs, artists, content creators. I think for me specifically, because I'm both, I kind of think it's like a unique intersection between someone who has a knowledge base in a lot of different areas of products and goods and, you know, companies and things that you like. I've worked with so many different companies from the beginning and
Mhm.
they've gotten so much bigger, like looking back and saying, well, I believed in this company. I should have just taken equity. It would be worth, like, for instance, I DJ the TikTok launch party in America. And like the amount they paid me if I would have taken equity, I'm sure it would have been worth like millions and millions of dollars by now. And it's like just something like that where, you're just getting brought opportunities. You're seeing things before other people. You're kind of like on the cutting edge of things on that side. And then on top of it, on like the music side and traveling, you're just always somewhere. There's always events. You're always getting booked to DJ events for things. And like I'll get booked to DJ like a crypto event here, or like I did an investor conference last month in Utah, and like I'm there with all of these people. So it's kind of just the perfect place to be. Everyone likes to have a good time. Everyone likes music. It's definitely, I feel like it honestly worked out to tie everything together that I kind of am interested in.
I love that. I love the first point that you made where, you know, our generation, we want things really fast. You know, we want the money tomorrow. Maybe we want to build these companies super quick. You know, maybe consider like the equity, consider the more long-term incentives that can come into place. But then also the second point
Yeah.
that you made about knowledge base, want to quickly dive into Vision Ventures because again, like really impressed with these amazing investments that you've made throughout your career. Just so people can get a little better understanding on Vision, what are the industries or the knowledge base that you're very interested in investing in? I know sustainability is something you're very keen on, but let's talk about those industries and also average check size or anything in case there are any potential founders listening that would be interested in pitching you one day.
Definitely. So I with doing vision, for me, it's just an extension of my personal investing as far as like I'm investing in companies like I'm really generally enjoying it. It's making my life better. And I do think other people benefit from it the same way that if when I try a product and I'm telling my followers about it because it's a new thing that I love and I think like everyone should try it or like everyone will enjoy it. So for me, I mean, a big area like human optimization through different biofeedback,
Mhm.
wearable techs, and things like that. I am very big into kind of like the biohacking, biofeedback situation. So I think people have no idea the potential that they have to unlock. And I do think that even in the past few years, I've seen such a huge difference in myself, you know, in relation to like mental health and physical health and energy levels and just pretty much my overall every area of health, but also just like my overall mood, the efficiency of my like my brain activity and all of these things, my sleep. I've been able to really get control of those things through biofeedback and certain other, you know, like there's so many apps built around that. There's so much tech built around that. And there's so much in the food industry built around that because people don't realize what you're putting in your body and like it is what's making up your body. And a lot of people don't understand how these things affect you long term and how like you have so much more control if you are more in control of like having data and knowing, you know,
Totally.
real time feedback. So you can say like, okay, I'm not getting enough of this, I need this, or like I'm not getting enough sleep, I need this, I'm not getting enough of this vitamin, I need this. Like how do we know? We need to be on the cutting edge of our health and preventative health. We need to being more in control of our health. Is that something that I think we've all seen over the past few years dealing with COVID? Because I personally, I was never worried about myself. I haven't gotten sick in 10 years. And even having COVID, I literally had no symptoms ever. I would never know if I was sick because I've been able to optimize myself, my immune system, my everything that I, you know, over time and with these different products or different things. So that's a main thing of mine. I also do think like consumer goods, different things, whether it's beauty and like again, that goes back to kind of like health, you know, when you have your health in check, you see the benefits throughout. And when you don't have your health in check, you see like problems with aging, problems, all these other problems that are then put a band-aid on by something else. So it's kind of just like finding the things that help optimize, especially I think, like I said, the health, the sustainability, just like consumer goods, software stuff built around any of those ideas.
Yeah, no, I love the health and wellness. I told you I'm super bullish on Aura Ring. I know the team at Forerunner and saw that you invested some in. Everybody's so worried about these phones, but the biggest piece of technology kind of has to be us. You know, we should know more about what's going on in our body, our sleep levels, everything that you just mentioned is it's true because how you treat your body is how you're gonna, you know, also treat your mind and like, you know, make better decisions. What you eat really is tied into how you act, your behavior. So I think the health and wellness space is very interesting, but super cool to hear about the other industries you're also investing in. So, Chantel, I want to be respectful of time because I know you're super busy. Final question I have for you. I understand you were super, super early in crypto back when people weren't talking about it. You were kind of bringing up Dogecoin before Elon, you know, even really spoke about it. I'll be with him next month, so that's super exciting to hear when I read
Oh
about that.
wow, it's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I know you're a huge fan, but we're not going to talk about Elon. We're going to talk about crypto. What like did you see like the potential in crypto
Well,
back so early?
well, I wasn't so early. Like I first started investing like 2016. My friends were telling me about it, and I just heard about the concept of like my friends were like, oh, you should invest in Bitcoin, like this, that. So I started just thinking about it, and I was like, well, if the whole entire world economy was put into crypto and that like all the sum of all of the goods, all of the goods and services, then in my head, I'm like, the potential of one Bitcoin would be this. And I was like, it just makes sense to me. I personally like have seen like people go about their life like money's real. This is, I don't think I'm like society's made up, money's made up, all these things are made up. I personally have found an interest from the beginning, like of how the economic system even developed. So like for me, I was like, well, it's came from this to this because when I was younger, my mom was like, she's pretty religious. She was very, very intentional with raising me. So she was very intentional with, okay, any short-term gratification, you need to build in long-term gratification with that. So when you watch TV for 1 hour, you need to read for 1 hour. And her big thing was like,
Cool.
my mom's very into philosophy and she's very into like theology too. But you learn a lot of history through studying those things. Those were like usually the things she would have me read. And so for me, I saw like how things shift from one way to the other. And in my head, I'm like, well, I could just shift this way. And it's a bet that I'm willing to make. And if I'm like, oh, I'm going to put, money in, not anything that's no, I wouldn't buy like a few purses with or a couple pairs of shoes, whatever it is. If I'm going to put this here to make a bet, if I think the potential could be this, then whatever. So that's what I did. And then when it came to Dogecoin, the reason why I thought Dogecoin had so much potential was because I was watching this show called Through the Wormhole, which is one of my favorite shows, Morgan Freeman. This was like maybe like 10 years, around 10 years ago. I was probably watching this, 8 years ago, something like that. And there's an episode about memes. And it's an episode about the transmission of information is most effective through memes. And like the fastest way things are transmitted is through memes. And I remember seeing that. And then when I was like hearing about Dogecoin, I'm looking at the Reddit and I'm thinking to myself, it's a meme. If it's gonna go viral, it's a meme. Like memes go viral the easiest. If
Yes.
something goes viral, then more people are talking about it, just getting more exposure. It has that key element, which I didn't see anywhere else at the time. So for me, I was like, okay, yeah, like a meme is a pictures with 1,000 words, and a meme can be easily
We've
transmitted,
seen
made into a
memes
lot of
back in the Stone Age. I mean, people writing things on walls,
yeah,
like those could have been considered memes. I mean, inside jokes, things that travel really
yeah.
fast. Those were
And
memes
even
too.
yeah, and even being able to remix something
Yes.
and have it be changed with over and over and over and made a lot of copies in different, copies that have small variations or big variations. At the end, there's so much data about this one thing. It's been transmitted so much. So to me, I saw that, I thought that, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna invest. It was way under. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put like nothing too crazy, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put like again, same thing where I'm like, all right, yeah, maybe I'd buy a bag with this, some shoes, but I'll probably forget about that or lose that at some point. So or I'm gonna get over this thing I'm gonna buy. So I might as well, I try to invest in all different areas. I'm very into investing in now like more like fashion. Like I've noticed that I like to spend money on things that I think will hold their value and go up.
Yes.
And I think that as I've gotten older, I've seen, before I would be like, yeah, I'm gonna wear this a couple times and then I'm not. But now I try to make a conscious effort of, you know, having a good balance between having sustainable clothes like that I know I'm gonna have forever, and then mixing in pieces that I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna probably wear this once or twice, but I'm gonna then make sure that I give it to a friend, make sure it's being reused and reused. But at the same time, like, okay, yeah, I'm also gonna look at this game as an investing game as well, rather than just like, oh, buying something to use it once. So my thought process has changed a little bit since then. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Chantel, you are super dope. I already knew that though, because we have a lot of mutuals. I know a lot of the founders that you've invested in, but my goal for this was to just show people listening this other side that they probably did not know about you. I mean, just how analytical you are and how involved you are in the investing landscape. So just want to say thank you so much for joining the show. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, and I had a great time.
Awesome.